In a world where two short-term rental bros come together.
What?
Not in that way, bro. There's a podcast of truly epic proportions where we talk about all things short-term rental and shoot the shit along the way. Welcome to the Co-Host Bros Podcast. Here are your hosts, Matt Codd and Austin Spitz.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Co-Host Bros Podcast. My name is Matt Codd and I'm here with my buddy Austin Spitz, and today we have a special guest, Jake Cohen with Step by Step BNB. What is going on, Jake?
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here. Excited to bro out with you guys. Find some common bro knowledge, and it's going to be awesome.
See, I knew this was Jake's kind of podcast. Jake's just one of the bros.
Just a bro.
So, just a bro. What's new with you, Austin? You got something? How you doing? You doing good?
Yeah, everything's good, man. Just keep plugging along and doing the co-hosting thing and growing and scaling this business. But nothing too new to report here, man. Just super excited for today's episode, dude.
Sweet. So I know, Jake, you have some short-term rentals and you own a price management company. So let's start with how you got into short-term rentals. Like, what set it apart? What happened? What you used to do? Yeah.
Cool. Well, do you want the short version or the 10-minute version?
Whatever the people may want. Whatever
All right,
you think
I'll give you a little bit of like longer background on me and who I am and how I became the person that I am. So when I was 10 years old, my folks bought a small hotel which was built for the 1960 Olympics in Lake Tahoe. They found this property and it was, I don't know what it was, $1 million or something, which was crazy expensive at the time in the, what was it? Maybe early 90s we're talking about. And it was on the beach in Lake Tahoe. And they were like, man, this would be so awesome to buy this place. And my parents were both kind of entrepreneurs, and they knew a thing or two about building a business. And they said, let's turn it into a bed and breakfast. So we bought this place. We moved in and we lived in 3 bedrooms of the property. And then we had 9 bedrooms that we turned into a bed and breakfast. So from 10 to 18, I lived on site at this place. I served breakfast in the morning. I served wine and cocktails in the afternoons to the people at the place. And I feel like because of that, hospitality is kind of like flowing through my veins. It's like ingrained in me. So after that, I went to school at UC San Diego. I got a degree in economics and a minor in theater. I feel like it's pretty much the perfect combination because you got to make the numbers work, but you also got to put on enough of a show for people to be interested, and you got to do some fun stuff. So I really enjoyed that about my background, that I have kind of the art side and the number side. And so after school, my folks had bought a second small hotel. This one was in Palm Springs, California. It was about 500 miles from the place in Lake Tahoe. And their plan was to go back and forth during the best seasons, and they would have a manager that worked opposite of them. Well, the manager quit after 2 months, and they were kind of sitting there going, oh, crap, how are we going to run this place in Palm Springs? It's pretty far away. So I had just graduated, and they said, Jake, why don't you go down there and go run this place for us? So we did this big renovation. I moved down there. I lived on site at the property. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars renovating this place. It was a 1950s theme hotel. Marilyn Monroe supposedly had stayed there, cool history, stuff like that. But the place had been kind of run down. So we spent all this money and went straight into the 2008 recession. So our numbers we had predicted were, our revenue was half what we thought we were going to do. And for me, this was supposed to be a quick project, like a year or two in Palm Springs. Then I was going to move on with the rest of my life. I ended up there for 5 years. And I was elected president of the Small Hotels of Palm Springs board. I won California Hotel and Lodging Manager of the Year award. We were ranked top 5 in the United States on TripAdvisor for hotels in the United States. Like we crushed it for what we were, but we were a 10-room hotel and it was never going to make a ton of money. So finally, after 5 years, I told my parents, I love you guys. I put in my time. I got to move on with my life. Moved to Denver. And Denver was kind of this ripe market for real estate at that time. I started looking around and there was like single family houses for $100,000. And I'm going, man, Denver really seems like it's on the rise. At the same time, my mom and dad got divorced, and my mom took a poor deal from my dad. She wanted to be done working. So she just said, pay me what you can pay me. And so she ended up with about $500,000 at 60 years old to live the rest of her life. No properties, no assets, no retirement. And I was like, Mom, I love you, but that was a really bad choice. How are you going to live? You don't have anywhere to live. What are you going to do? And so we came together and we decided we would invest in real estate together. We bought 2 properties in Denver that were long-term rentals, and they did well. But we're looking at the numbers, and each of us is making like $1,000, $1,500 a month. And, I'm running out there to fix toilets. People are leaving junk cars in our parking lots. People didn't have bank accounts to pay us, things like that. So it was a pain in the butt. And after a few years, we realized the properties appreciated well. We said, let's 1031 into some vacation rental properties. So this was 2016, I believe. We bought our first place in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. It was an up-down duplex. It needed everything. We spent $30,000 raising the floors to be level again. It was ridiculous the amount of money we put into this place. But at the time, we were coming from long-term rentals, so I was, $20,000 a year in cash flow seemed like a ton of money to me. So anyways, we did this renovation. I asked property managers in the area, what should this place do? They thought it would do 50 grand. I did 85,000 in the first year. And from there, I just was like, okay, I'm focusing on this. This is awesome. We bought another place in Steamboat. We eventually sold the first duplex and bought a place in Gulf Shores, Alabama. At the same time, me and my wife were moving in and out of houses every few years. We were keeping those kind of as midterm rentals down in Denver. And eventually we hit the point where I said, I could retire myself from the fire department, which I was a firefighter for 7 years with North Metro Fire down in Denver. And we kind of hit a point where our kids were young. I was struggling with not sleeping at all. My wife was working overnights at the ER, and we just decided it was time to simplify. And I said, okay, I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to get it, do this full time. And at the time I had no plans to do this pricing management that I do now. That really came about because my friends who are also in the industry asked me, how are you making more money than everybody else in the area? And I did a little presentation for some folks, and they all kind of looked at me and they were like, we are not doing any of that stuff. We're not doing customizations. We're not doing all this market research stuff. And I just assumed everybody else was doing it because I kind of I was living this life as a firefighter. I wasn't talking to other people in the short-term rental world. And so I just assumed everyone was doing the same thing. And suddenly it dawned on me, oh man, I have this knowledge that has been built up over 7 years that I've been doing this that other people don't have. So I took on 5 properties in 5 different cities as a test over last summer. And I ran those 5 properties. They all had their best summer ever. And that was enough for me to launch this business. We've now been active for about 8 months. I have one full-time employee stateside, one full-time VA that helps me. We have 160 listings online now with our revenue management business, and it's been awesome. We just love helping people. Just to circle back so that you guys aren't wondering what happened to my mom. My mom's doing well. She lives in Hawaii. We turned her $350,000 investment into $2 million of equity. And she gets paid $4,500 a month, she bikes, she snorkels, she lives the good life in Hawaii. So all of this is really special to me because short-term rentals totally changed my life. Like I would be in a very different place right now if I had not fallen into what we call short-term rentals these days. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's the gist.
Nice, man. So I have one question off of that. This is the first I've heard of what sounds like from the beginning a house hack B&B. So have you coined a term for that yet? Because I feel like you got a golden opportunity. I don't know. I'm sure people have done it, but like living in the hotel, working there, it's like a house hack, but you're doing a short-term rental at the same time. I don't know.
Then you can make a
Oh,
T-shirt like I do.
Dude,
Make a
we got to
t-shirt.
come up with a great
It's
tagline.
like,
You guys
you
are
know.
going to have to help me with that. But yeah, it's funny. I got into the FI world, the financial independence world, and house hacking's like really big in the financial independence world. And this was probably 10 years ago. And I started listening to all their podcasts, and I'm going, oh, my parents did that when we were little. And we even did it before we were in the hotel. We had someone living in our basement of our first house, and then we moved into the hotel and we did it there. All of our expenses paid for by the hotel. And then I did it when I went down to Palm Springs. I was house hacking at that hotel, and I realized, I was like, wow, crazy. We've been doing this for like 50 years as house hacking, and other people think this is a new concept. So we'll work on a tagline for sure.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Matt.
No, you're good. Good. Go for it.
No, I was just gonna say that's one thing if I wish I could have done if I could go back in time, getting a house like right out of college, because I just lived the bachelor life with like 5 other dudes in a rental property. I was like, man, I could have bought a like 4 or 5 bedroom house, probably qualified for it, rented out the 4 rooms, which I was doing anyways, and now I'm like, damn. Well, if only I could have done that. But yeah, anyways, that's cool. Cool story, man. Appreciate you
We
sharing.
always have that hindsight. I feel the same way. Like if I had known better, I would have done that too. But the best time to do something is 10 years ago. The second best time is today, right? So we all have to make our best situation from where we are today.
Absolutely, man.
I'm gonna say that's funny you say that, because it's like I remember before I started doing this stuff, I'd hear people say that. I'm like, God, that's such bullshit. Like, oh, best time was 30 years ago. The second best time is right this fucking second. And I was like, yeah, it's such bullshit. But it's really true. I haven't seen you since February. So last time we talked in February, I think you had 100 listings and 0 employees, and you were trying to get an employee. So now, since I've seen you, you've gotten 60 additional listings and 2 employees.
I think it was more like I probably had
impressive.
more like 40 listings at that point, honestly.
Okay.
That was I'm assuming you're talking about STR Wealth. So at STR Wealth, I did have a VA that was helping me. But yes, the growth has happened very, very quickly. And it's been really cool to see all these people coming in. I still feel like we're kind of in the infancy of this revenue management model. There's a bunch of people that are getting into it now. Everyone's trying to figure things out. I'm trying to develop some dashboards and things with different APIs so that I can get all the data that I want in one place. And, as things get further established, we get to a point where you can just subscribe to something. But when you're early in an industry, you have to build all the stuff yourself, which is kind of exciting. It's kind of cool to figure out what do you want? What do you want to see? How do you want to be able to display it to your clients? Things like that. So I feel like I'm lucky to be where I'm at. I feel lucky that I have the experience to be where I'm at. I look at Price Labs now. If I was coming into this with fresh eyes and I had to learn all of Price Labs, it would be impossible. I can't believe people pick it up in, a few months. I've been learning it for like 7 years, and they just keep adding another layer and another layer and another layer. And I just feel lucky that I've been doing it a long time, and it started pretty simple for me.
So I think I obviously utilize Price Labs, but I think I definitely don't know nearly as much as you. So walk me through this. Let's just say I come to you. I'm interested in your services. I've got 20 properties under management. I can afford to pay you now to do revenue management. So like when I'm coming on as a client, like what does that look like for me? Like what do your services look like, and kind of what do you provide to people that manage, just say, multiple properties?
Yeah, that's actually our target clientele is someone with between 5 and 30 properties is kind of where we see the sweet spot. Because before you have, when you have less than 5 properties, you're probably at a point where you have enough time, you can put in the effort to be able to do your own revenue management. Once you get past that, and before you get past maybe 30, 40 properties, you don't have the resources to like have someone dedicated to do it in-house. So it's kind of that sweet spot. So that's what we're finding is that we really love people that are in that situation, because that's the ideal situation where you need it. You don't have as much time, but you're not so big that you can hire it out completely. So what it looks like when someone comes on board, we do an initial free consultation call. So first hour consultation basically is free. We have Calendly links on our website. Our website is stepbystepbnb.com. So if anyone's interested, feel free to hop on there, click on the revenue management link. You can set up a call with either myself or my number 2 in the company, my operations manager, Jillian, and we'll go ahead and walk you through how our processes work. But basically, we look at everything with them and we say, okay, here's an example of a market dashboard. That's always my starting place with everybody is, what does your market look like? So Price Labs has this great feature called Market Dashboards. It costs $10 a month to have a market dashboard on a particular area. And I feel like there's so much incredible data on there that you can dive into all of these things. What's ADR by month? What's RevPAR by month? What's our median booking window? I feel like a lot of people really have no idea some of these statistics that they really need to know. So we look at all of that data. We create a pricing program. So the basis of our pricing programs is seasonality, because we feel like each season needs to be treated essentially like a separate pricing program. So high season, your median booking window might be like 60 or 90 days. Low season, it might be 10 days. If you treat those exactly the same, you're screwing yourself on one end or the other, or both, depending on how you set it up. So we look at all of that data. We create this seasonal profile. We adjust prices up or down. One of the cool concepts that I always feel like people miss is Price Labs. When you put in a base price, say that base price puts you at 50th percentile in your market. I feel like people always misunderstand. They think that they're going to move up and down with the market, which they do, but they're still at the 50th percentile of their market. That's kind of how Price Labs works, is they're trying to keep you in the same place in relation to your competitors. So when you look at Price Labs and you're at the 50th percentile, what we realize is we actually want to bring ourselves down to, say, the 25th percentile when it's low season, because we want to be priced better than everyone that's similar to us during times of low occupancy. And then during high season where there's a lot more money to be made, I'm comfortable pushing myself maybe to 60th percentile. So we actually move our prices up and down by season to push ourselves into different categories, because we feel confident that we can compete well at those different levels at different times of the year. We are also adjusting minimum nights. We have all these other customizations that we bring into our pricing plan. And then from there, we have an onboarding call. We discuss all of our findings. We get them onboarded. We make sure that they're comfortable with the situation that we have for them. And then we're in their property and we're in their listing a minimum of once per week. In the beginning, it's more than that. But once we get through a period of time where we're kind of confident in our overall pricing strategy, Then it's once a week. And we make major changes once a week. And we want to look at our statistics. How many nights were booked each week? And then we make another adjustment. Because if you make an adjustment every single day, there's no way for you to track which of those adjustments made someone book. So we're always thinking about how do we track the changes that we made, as well as are we making the right changes, essentially. Does that give you a pretty good idea of?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's great. So that's kind of like what I used with my house. Like I was zooming towards 75% and then down toward 25th. But that would vary based on amenities and location, right? I mean, the average property, right? We're talking, 50 to 60 down to 25 or so. So that makes 100% sense. I do also want to mention that if they do want to learn more about pricing, you do have a Facebook group where you do classes for free and give people value to learn about their pricing, right? So, and that's what Price My STR.
Yeah, Price Your STR. Yeah, on Facebook. So free group for anyone to join. And we try and do a free training every 1 to 2 months. Where it's a long training. It's like an hour to 2 hours long, depending on how many questions and what we try and tackle. It seems like there's always more to tackle than what I allot time for. So it's, pricing is one of those things that there's really no limit to how far you explore it. But yeah, I really enjoy that. And coaching is one of my favorite things to do. I wish I had more time in the day where I could meet with people just one-on-one all the time and work on their pricing programs. We just realized, unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So we got to do more of a group model with that.
100%. So I did want to ask as well. So is your wife still working her W-2? Or you guys both aren't working your W-2s?
My wife is a PA, a physician assistant, and she works in an urgent care in town. She works about 80% full time. So she works 2 to 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts. She really loves her work and she really doesn't want to give it up. It doesn't really matter what I do. If I made $500,000 a year, she would still want to do work just because it makes her feel good about what she does. But we do have good flexibility. And the nice thing is, because I make my own schedule, I can kind of be more flexible to pick up the kids and, take them to things on the days of the week where she's working. And then she helps me out, obviously, on the days that I need additional time. So it's a good partnership.
That's cool. And so the best decision you ever made is to say, you know what, I'm going to quit and just see what happens. And you made it happen. That hotel. So you grew up in South Lake Tahoe for the most part, then?
North Lake Tahoe. Yeah, North Lake Tahoe, but yeah.
North Lake Tahoe. Okay. So it was so the hotel was on the lake.
It was an awesome place, and I don't think I realized how cool it was growing up there. But it's probably all of us experienced that, where you leave home and you go somewhere else and you realize there was actually some really cool stuff about your hometown that you didn't realize until you actually left. But yeah, I remember coming back from college, kind of the first trip back, and we came over the mountain and I saw the whole lake in front of me and I was like, oh my God, I never had seen it like that before. I had forgotten how beautiful it was. Yeah. So it's always cool to have those realizations.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. I used to go all the time. So, and it's nice and crisp.
Yes, it is.
So I thought you had something else, and I apologize.
Oh no, it's all good. No, I did have one question though. From like, yeah, I guess I don't know, but I guess my question as an operator, like, let's say I come to you, how often is it that like your returns when you implement your pricing strategy would yield something to where, like, me as a manager, I want to pay for your service, but like how close would I be to making, like, breaking even on my returns from using you? Does that say, so like, say it's $100 a listing, but I'll probably more than make maybe $100 in my commissions or something? Do you kind of understand what I'm saying? Sorry, I phrased that kind of confusingly, but like the return for me as well.
So you're say a co-host, and you're being paid 20% on each listing for their revenue. How do we reconcile that to make sure that what I'm getting for you is more than the 20% that you're getting in addition to what you're already making?
Yeah, like how does that kind of, is it possible to just onboard with you and then if you can see the numbers and be like, hey, I could probably do about this much, and that'll offset the price that it costs for my services, to where essentially my deal would be like, it'd be if I could get close to breaking even on you increasing my returns. To me, I'm just being selfishly asking for myself. This kind of seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
our goal is for us to always by far pay for ourselves with our services. I will say that where we are in the market right now, things have become a little more challenging than a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, if you had said, can you beat my numbers by 20%? I would have said absolutely, no problem. But there's a lot of markets right now where we're seeing 10, 15% dips year over year. Those are tough, where someone comes on board with us and they're expecting us to make 20% more, but the market's already down 15%. So, we break even, which is actually us being up 15%, according to the market. And they're upset because, we're not beating those numbers. So I really hesitate to make guarantees or, definitely we can do this. What we try and do is in everyone's situation is we try and look at your particular situation. Where are you at this current moment? Are you using seasonal profiles? Are you doing all the customizations that we do? Some people are really high level revenue managers that are co-hosts or that are property managers. And if they're doing all the stuff that we're going to do, I'm going to just be straight up and be like, hey, I don't know that I can do that much better than you. I'd love to say that I can, but I don't want to lie to you and say I definitely can. Sometimes we get people who, are not even using dynamic pricing, or they're using Airbnb's smart pricing program or something like that. Those are the people that I can say pretty confidently, yeah, we're going to beat your numbers by, 20+%. But it's really, there's so many variables. I would say across the board on average, we see about a 20% increase year over year. I'm extrapolating that because I've only been in business for 8 months. But what we generally see is the first couple of months, it's like a few percent up, because a lot of our strategies are based on us getting bookings 6 months ahead or 3 months ahead or something like that. So we're not seeing the benefits of that in those first few months. So usually we're seeing the benefits of us being in there all the time, doing last minute discounts and making sure that nights don't go by unbooked that could be booked. Then you start to see more of the overall long-term strategy come into effect, more like 3 to 4 months out, because now we've had enough time to kind of dial those strategies in. So, hard to say long-term exactly where we're going to end up. I see the overall trends of the markets getting a lot better now going into the summer. I think people are getting out of short-term rentals that have been struggling. So all those huge amounts of listings that came on board in the last couple of years, the people who are not doing well are starting to leave the market. We're getting back to a more even supply and demand curve, which makes it a lot easier for us to do well year over year.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot in like Facebook groups in my market where I've got a fully furnished house and I'm selling all the furniture. So they're basically kind of saying without saying that they're tapping out. And it seems like more and more things are coming up on Facebook groups. Hey, it didn't work out. I'm listing my short terminal, which is unfortunate. But I think we all kind of saw this coming over the last few years. And we all know that the people that are here for the long run and the long-term operators are going to stay around. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. But one thing I want to touch on that you said is like, you're also providing a service that's kind of invaluable, because if you know that you're going to come in and you can at least make more money, the owner, it's my expense to pay you, right? So the owner is going to make more money. With that being said, is kind of like, it almost makes me more unfireable, because no matter what happens, if they're operating and at a high revenue point because you're doing it, yeah, sure, I'm paying for it, maybe I'm not offsetting my whole cost, but the long term of that relationship is like, hey, if I've got 20 properties, I'm less likely to be fired by using you. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely I definitely like it. I'm definitely
Yeah,
interested.
it's definitely something. I think we're going to see more and more of these types of businesses coming about. This was something that I had a realization. You guys are probably, we're Matt and I are in a couple of the same mastermind groups and things like that. But one of the things that's really been circling is like a who, not how mentality of who can I hire that's going to do this for me instead of how do I do this myself. And I know for myself, I really didn't realize I was doing a bad job of designing my properties. I really didn't realize that I was getting lazy with my communications, things like that, until I started being around all of these people in these mastermind groups that are operating at a much higher level than I am at that stuff. So I think what we're going to see is more, someone like me who's really good with the numbers. Numbers to me are like written word. They speak to me when I look at a graph. It just makes sense to me. If you say, Jake, can you write me a beautiful poem or an essay? Hell no, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do it because I suck at that. So I just think we're going to have more and more of that specialization where the people who are good at one thing should stick to that thing and help others with that. And the people who are not good at that thing should hire someone to do that thing. And all of us are going to level up because of that. And I feel like I saw that in the hotel world. When I was in the hotels, we were kind of just starting revenue management in hotels. People were starting to do smart pricing back in the day, 15, 20 years ago. And we're in the same place now where our data still isn't that good. We're still kind of working through what are the key metrics that we need to be evaluating. We're trying to figure out how to get all of that data into one place for us to look at. And it's pretty cool to see that transition in this market where it's not mom and pop hobby type thing anymore. It's like the people who really want to excel, they got to do better than just throwing it up on Airbnb, putting a base price in Price Labs, slapping up their old IKEA furniture from their other house, that kind of thing. So I'm excited to see this transition.
Yeah, I think you touched on it well. It's like the mastermind group kind of whenever you're in a mastermind group, it's just like there is different people within the group that have different skill sets and everybody's different everybody's good at certain different things. So I couldn't agree more with that. And there's just so many, especially in the short-term rental space, there's just so many avenues of things that you can do and be good at, whether it be listing optimization, smart pricing like you're doing. Then you have operations, you've got management, you've got marketing, and there's just you can't. It's impossible to be a jack of all trades. There's nobody out there that there's some skill set that I have better than them at something, right? I'm better than them at something. So I think that's perfect. What you said is like you got to collaborate in who, not how. You got to make enough money to find these people to pay them so that they can service you. I mean,
Well, yeah, and
definitely.
oftentimes I feel like it's not even you have to make the money. It's like you will make more money by hiring that person. I look at my photos. So I have one property that I've owned for 7 years, and I haven't gotten new photos. I haven't really updated the design. I finally added a hot tub this year, but for the most part, it's been the same as it's been for like 6 or 7 years, and I look at the photos now, and I mean, I would be slapping myself across the face if this was someone coming to me saying, what should I do for listing optimization? I'd be like, you need new photos. This place looks horrible. But it's one of those things. You got to bite off what you can chew, and I'm trying to do it the right way. I want to do a full redesign. I got to get a contractor in there, make some adjustments. I got to repaint everything, new curtains, new TVs, new amenities. And it's not something I can just say, oh, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'd rather make a good plan. It's still doing well. 6 months from now, I want to have all of that done, and I want to show off this is what a property should look like. But it takes time.
Yeah. So if you come to the mastermind meeting in August, I'll ask you about it again.
I will be there.
It's funny. Yeah, good. Good. That's exciting. I'll bring my wig. Yeah. Yeah, dude, I'll bring mine for sure. Yeah, that's That's cool. It's funny because I saw somebody post something on a Facebook group the other day saying like, "Oh, Superhost, can you look at my listing and tell me what's wrong with it?" And I said, "The pictures are terrible. I would suggest getting professional pictures. Nobody wants to see blurry lights." And the person was obviously anonymous for I get butthurt reasons probably. And they wowed my comment, and then they replied to me and said, "You don't have to be so rude." And
Wow.
I was like, my
Facebook
guess
bully.
is you. Yeah, I was like, my guess is you're anonymous because you can't handle the truth, but you asked for the truth, so I gave you the truth. Like, how do you want me to sugarcoat it? You know, the listing's really nice, and picture number 7 is fantastic. The rest of them suck. Like, what do you want me to say, lady? But speaking of Facebook posts, so I saw your post to reply to somebody else's post the other day, and I find it funny because I keep hearing people saying, "Oh, well, revenue manager didn't work for me because in the first month it didn't blow up," right? And I kind of want you to shed some light on how I can get my package in 2 days from Amazon, but pricing management doesn't fucking work that way. So
Yeah,
let's talk about
absolutely.
it.
Amazon didn't start delivering packages in 2 days when they first started either. So let's remember where these behemoths of the industry, they all started somewhere. And Airbnb started as something where it was literally people with airbeds in their living rooms. Airbnb has come a long way from where it was when it started. I think one of the important things to remember is revenue management is somewhat of a new science, and all of us that are doing revenue management, there's not many people who have been doing it longer than a year. And those of us that are still under a year, there's a lot of stuff we're still figuring out. I'm not going to tell you that I'm doing a bad job. I think that I'm doing a great job for my clients, but I will tell you, I'm doing a great job at revenue management. I'm not doing the best job at invoicing and sending the appropriate communications and displaying the appropriate data to our clients because we're still working on building that part of the business, and we're getting better and better every day. One of the things that's a core tenet of my business is that if my clients want communication from me, I want to give them my time. I want to reply. I want to give them what they need. So we've started doing like a Loom video. Anytime someone sends us a question, instead of me just replying via email and saying, why is that 2-night minimum on instead of 3 nights? I could just reply back and say, because the market data says so. But instead, what I'm trying to do is show the market data. Here's the market data. Here's where I found the information. And this is why we have it set to the 2-night minimum. If you would like me to change that, please let me know. And we can have a call, we can discuss it, we can figure it out. But I think one of the things is we all just need to realize this is a new industry. We're trying to figure everything out. Those of us that are doing revenue management, we're not magicians. It does take a few months to figure out the right settings. Every single property is different. So I'll give an example, right? I have properties in Gulf Shores. I have 2 of my neighbors in Gulf Shores that own properties very similar to mine who have come on board with me as clients. I know the properties well. I've walked through both of the properties. I should be able to nail it. Like as soon as they gave me their listings, I should be able to know exactly what the pricing is. But the truth is, every single property is different. What if one had a 3-star review a month or 2 ago? That could affect where pricing needs to be now today. I'm not necessarily going to see it by clicking on their Airbnb listing. It could be pushed down a little bit. So it's one of those things where we look at the market data, we say, this is what it should do. And we make estimates, we guess, we put in our hypothesis for this is what the pricing program should look like. Then every week we make tweaks to that until we find the exact right mix of all of those pieces. And if I change 4 or 5 pieces at once, just like we talked about before, I won't know which one made the difference that made the change that got me the bookings. So it's a process. It takes time. The way we look at this is 2 separate scenarios. I have near term, which I'm doing everything I can with discounting, with manual overrides, with whatever I need to do to get you booked today, the next couple of weeks, the next month, whatever I need to do. I'm doing these things, and that's separate from my pricing program. which I'm trying to set up appropriately for the, rest of the next number of years. And this is something that I'm tweaking week by week by week by week, getting better and better and better. And every single week we make changes. Doesn't matter how long. I mean, my properties that I've had for 7 years, I still make changes every single week. There's things that change, the market changes all the time. So there's no perfect science to this. It's an art and a science put together.
So are you pricing for occupancy goal, or is it like, how do you determine what the occupancy is? Because if you could get 90% occupancy and have very low nightly rates, high turnaround, bad guests, stuff like that, or is it more of like you're just trying to get the nights at the highest rate, best bang for your buck? Or is it client specific? Like, what's your approach from that perspective?
My general approach is tends to be higher than market occupancy, with about the same ADR as market occupancy. That's kind of the strategy that I've found. The way I'm able to do that is because generally I can get higher ADR than my comps during high season, and I'm going to get lower ADR than my comps to drive occupancy during lower times, midweeks and lower seasons. But we very much are specific to our clients. Part of this process is they get an onboarding spreadsheet and they tell us everything about their properties. What's the address? What's their BNB listing? Do you allow one nights? Do you allow pets? What's your cleaning fee? Do you want longer stays? Do you want shorter stays? What's your revenue goal? All of those things are part of that. And when we do our onboarding call with them, we try and discuss any of the things that don't match up. So if someone has a minimum price of $500, and we say, we can keep your minimum price at $500 for your 2-bedroom condo, but the reality is we're probably only going to book a few nights in the summer, and we're not going to get any bookings the rest of the year. And I try and explain it in a way that they can conceptualize. So sometimes people have in their head, like, I have a $500 a night property, right? So the reason they are tied to that $500 a night is that's what they get during high season on the weekend. So they look at their property and they say, it's worth that much. And so I'll say, okay, great. During high season, you make $4,000 a month because you book 8 nights on the weekends for $500 a night. What if I dropped your price to $200 a night for the remaining, say, 20 nights that are available in the middle of the week? We're using round numbers as much as possible. So $200 times 20 nights, that's another $4,000, right? So would you be okay with me doubling your revenue, but you have to drop down to $200 a night? Most people, when they're explained to it that way, they say, oh, yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. That's worth it. But it's not always like a one-to-one kind of scenario like that. But oftentimes people really are focused on booking their weekends for the highest possible price, and they forget about all of the other revenue that is just sitting there as potential. And there's no one staying at their property. They're not there. They're not enjoying it. Why leave it vacant? Let's get people in there. Let's get some money. I want to touch on one more thing before I move off of this, because you brought up you don't want to get too low and get problem guests. There's a really interesting study done by IntelliHost. Actually, it wasn't IntelliHost. It was AngelHost. They did a study, all different price points. And they have, I can't remember how many listings, 800 listings or something like that. This was over the course of a year or something like. It was like 15,000 data points. It was a pretty significant study. They found zero correlation between damage and price of your property. So that is a misnomer that people have in their heads. I will tell you my strategy for that, because I have my places in Gulf Shores. They are absolutely like spring break, college magnet type places. And what I do is I ask some very simple questions. Are you over the age of 25? What are you coming to town for? Are you coming with an organization? Some very simple stuff like that. And it's amazing. Like, I have it part of my automated messages. They book, first message they get, thank you for booking our property. Just want to confirm some details. you have said you're coming with 14 people. You know, are you over 25? Will you pay for extra damages and cleaning that happens because of your stay? 99% of the time, people who are going to be problem guests, they peace out. They never send me a response back. They're like, they cancel their reservation, they're done. You know, they send in their inquiry, whatever. They don't talk to me again. The people who offer me, a 22-year-old earlier this year, hey, I'm part of a Christian organization. We want to come. We want to spend time at the beach. I promise there will be no alcohol. There will be no problems. I'll pay for damages. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to trust that person. I'm going to say, okay, I'll take a chance on you. And I think that's one of those things is, you know, I want to trust people are going to be good people, but you also have to convince me of it. I'm not going to just turn a blind eye. I want to ask a couple questions and make sure this is not a bad situation for me. But since I've started implementing just a few simple questions, my problems at my properties have gone to almost zero.
Interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I think that the cool thing I kind of want to circle back a little bit is that especially for your clients that you said that you'll respond to them as to why you did something with a Loom video showing them why you did it, so on and so forth. So really you're going above and beyond by teaching your clients pricing, you know, revenue management and pricing by the way you're answering these questions that you're getting. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. What made you think of that?
I think that's how I always want an answer. You know, I don't want someone to just say, because I wanted to, you know, it's like, trust me because I'm the expert. Because are we really experts? I don't know. You know, it seems like there's got to be something more behind it than just trust me. So I always like to prove a point. You know, if there's a problem, if someone says, man, my revenue's down 10% compared to last year, I'm not going to just say, yeah, the market's down. I want to show them proof that the market is down. You know, here's the occupancy level for your market. Here's the ADR for your market. This is why we're experiencing this thing. And if I don't have a good answer, I need to just admit that and be like, hey, I don't know, man. I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure out the right mix of things and I haven't found it yet. I had a property that I was working on that was in Denver and they were specializing in bachelorette parties. And we were really struggling with their pricing program because they wanted to get super high prices during the weekends, but they wanted, you know, to try and get some bookings midweek as well. So I was to a point where I was at like a 50% discount during certain days of the week. But they had in their head that we are going to get the same prices as we got last year. Well, there were like 2 or 3 times as many properties in that bedroom count since last year. And so they had in their mind, we're going to get, you know, whatever it was, $1,500 a night for these properties. And I kept telling them, you know, the data is all saying we have to lower our price. We have to lower our price. We have to lower our price. And they were very stubborn about it. And we went 3 or 4 months. Bookings got very sparse. And finally, he was like, you know what, Jake, do your thing. Do what you need to do. And I lowered the price by like 20%. And it was like, bam, the funnel turned on. All of a sudden we popped back to the first page on Airbnb. Everything started booking again. And it was suddenly like, you know, all of these problems went away as soon as we admitted that we needed to make a bigger adjustment than, no, I'm going to get the same thing I got last year. You know, generally the numbers don't lie. And that's what's cool about data is if you use data to back up your decisions, it's not a guess. There's always some element of finding that, you know, the right sweet spot, but it's like, you know, that the data says this, so it's not going to be too far off from that. So that always helps me when I'm making decisions because there's a lot riding on my shoulders. I have 160 listings. A lot of people depend on this money on a, you know, weekly, monthly basis. I don't want to go into this blind and just make some guesses. I want to do something that makes me feel good, that I can sleep at night and feel like I'm giving people a real value for their money.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, they have to realize that they came to you for a reason, and it's hard for people to let go of control, but they just got to say, hey, here's my portfolio, take over. Well, let's follow up in a little bit. And then, run me through how we're performing, stuff like that. But I think it's kind of tough in our business as well for like, hey, just let me operate. But yeah, appreciate you sharing that. I got a good question for you. So for our listeners out there, that's like the solo operators, what's like the single biggest mistake that operators make when setting up their listing in Price Labs that you see?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Anything in particular
Yeah,
stick out?
there's a couple of things. I think we touched on market dashboard already, where people basically they don't do research. They just trust what something says. So, I was on AirDNA. AirDNA said my ADR is this. But they didn't look at AirDNA close enough to see 50% of the properties that were part of that were beachfront, and their property is not beachfront. So those numbers are skewed very far in one direction up, and their property is going to be on the downside of that 50%. So I think really just, you wouldn't get into, like, you wouldn't be a stock trader without knowing some data about the stocks that you're buying or selling. You would go into it with data. And I think sometimes we just turn a blind eye to the fact that this is very serious investing, just like anything else in our lives. And really using the data that's available to you, because we're in a time where things are at your fingertips. There's no, you don't have to mail away for, the special catalog and wait 2 weeks for it to get back to you. It's a matter of simply paying, $25 a month, or, in the case of Price Labs Market Dashboard, it's $10 a month. Even if you haven't bought a place in that area, spend $10 a month for a couple of months and evaluate the market, see all the data. Price Labs is one of those things where you can actually click on every single individual listing by subscribing to a market dashboard. You can get amazing data by doing that. So I think the biggest thing is actually use the resources that are out there. And maybe the other thing is, if you don't know enough to make good decisions, don't decide. Like, ask someone for help, get someone who's an expert. Ask, even going on these Facebook groups, man, I am blown away sometimes by how much information people will give away for free on a Facebook group. I mean, that's part of my model, is like to give away these free trainings to people. But it's incredible. If you go online, someone will post, like you were saying, post your listing, give me some feedback on my listing. Sometimes there's like 50 or 100 comments on those things. People are getting down to the nitty gritty of, hey, your string lights are going left to right and they should be forward to back, and stuff like that. It's like, man, I never would have spent the time to write that comment, but it's incredible that people will.
Or you could be like Matt and just straight up roast everybody on there, right? No, I'm just kidding. But
I didn't roast anybody.
We need people to be honest.
No, but what I want to touch. Yeah, for sure. But no, one thing I wanted to call out though, so like for when I'm like cold calling on people, like I use the market dashboard for my area, and it's almost like you can pretty much see how much money their property is making, right? If it's linked on Price Labs. And I know that my market, let's say 80% of the revenue comes from Airbnb, 20 for VRBO. I think it pulls the data, correct me if I'm wrong, from Airbnb if you find that exact line item listing. And what I can do is I can see like, man, it's like saying their annual revenue was like $20,000. Like, I need to figure out who this is and get in contact with them, because they should be doing $65,000, and find out who the property managers. But I've been doing that on the back end, and I've gotten a client or two like that by seeing what that number is. That's pretty accurate Airbnb revenue, right?
I think over an aggregate, it's pretty accurate. Any particular property can be skewed pretty significantly, because if you think about how Price Labs is getting that data, they're scraping it, right? So, say me as an owner, I go in and I block a month because me and my family are going to go live there for a month. They're guessing at when those are owner blocks and when they are maintenance blocks and when they are actual reservations. So there are times where the numbers get skewed. And one of the ones that I see most often is a listing that has been doing very well and had consistent occupancy for a period of time. And then they jack the price, say normally they're booking at like $200, and then they jack the price to $1,000. Price Labs isn't smart enough to realize that that's not the price that they're actually going to get booked at. So they start extrapolating the data like, oh, last year they were at 75% occupancy and now their price is $1,000 a night. And they use 75% occupancy plus $1,000 a night. And they're showing like, oh, this place is going to do $300,000 in revenue. No, it's not. That place is still going to do the 75,000 it did last year. It's using bad data because someone, messed with the data at some point. Usually Price Labs catches up. So it's not like a long-term problem. It's something that, you'll catch one or two of those listings as you're doing market research. You'll say, oh, that's not good data. Take that off of my list so that I don't screw up. But if you look at, say you look at the 50 listings around that property, you take an aggregate of that, that's a very good estimate on what that property will do. The numbers can just be skewed on any particular property at a given time.
So I know you're short on time because I have so many more questions we could ask you. We're going to have to do a part 2 on this. I swear. I'm going to ask you one more question. I know you're going to keep it short and sweet because you got an appointment in 13 minutes. Then tell everybody where they could find you and then DM me that information so I can put it in the show notes. So last question I got is, have you ever had to fire a client?
Yes. It's actually, I wouldn't say it's that uncommon to fire a client, and I wouldn't say it's uncommon for a client to fire me. And I feel like all of us need to be aware that there are good fits and there are not so good fits with everything we do. Just like dating, you've probably gone out with some people that you really had a great time with, and you've gone out with some people that you said, I don't ever want to see that person again. That was a total waste of my time. The hardest one for me to fire was someone who was a business partner of mine in another aspect of short-term rentals. And we just found that we were not a good fit working together. She wanted some control over the properties, and I could not do my job appropriately while her still having that control. So I'll give you an example of what happened is she operates a lot in midterm rentals, and sometimes she would be negotiating contracts with like an insurer or, something outside of Airbnb and our normal atmosphere. But she also wanted, the last 2 weeks to be available on Airbnb, for example. If it didn't get booked midterm, then we're going to allow it to be booked short term. And so I'm trying to book the property short term during those last 2 weeks. She's negotiating a contract for someone to move in, 2-3 days from now. So we had a couple times where I got these, nasty gram emails saying like, hey, you screwed up this $10,000 contract by taking a $400 booking. And I'm like, I get that, but that means you need to change what we're doing. It doesn't mean it's my fault. This is how we agreed we were going to operate. So, it was one of those things that it was hard to have that conversation. We're still good friends. We get along well. We still operate in other avenues together. And I think it's one of those things. Sometimes you just realize either a person is not ready to give up the reins. I had someone not long ago, earlier this month, she came on board with me. And I was actually really surprised she came on board with me because my initial conversations with her just seemed like she really wanted control. And then she said, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay. And we built everything out and we went online. And it was like 3 days later, I got a email and she was like, I cannot let go of this. I'm so sorry that you guys did all this work. And I was like, no worries. These things happen. We did change our contract now where we require 3 months because we realized like we put in way more work than the first month that we charge. And so, these are things you learn though when you're in business. But I've definitely have clients fire me too. And, either it's not a good fit because they want to do their own thing. They're not ready to give up control over the situation, or maybe it was just an anomaly where I just didn't have it dialed in and I didn't do that great of a job. I am one of those people that I will give 100% every time. That doesn't mean I'm perfect every time. Sometimes I still don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm going into new markets and new data all the time. And sometimes it just takes me too long to figure things out. So I understand that. And I appreciate all the clients that come on board with us. The biggest thing that we ask with our clients is just like, hey, give us a heads up. If you're not happy, if there's something that's not right, let us try and fix it. If we can't, then we understand if you need to leave. And same from my side. I'm going to tell you, if I'm about to fire you, I'm going to tell you like, hey, these are the problems I'm having. Can we get through this, or should we just go our separate ways? So anyways, to finish up, how can you find me? My website is stepbystepbnb.com. And I can go ahead and share this real quick. Oh boy, this is getting complicated. Share. All right, there's my website, stepbystepbnb.com. You can click on the revenue management tab. Can you see it?
Yeah. I added to the stage. So if everybody wants to see this website, they'll have to catch it on the YouTube. But I'll put everything in the show notes with the web address and everything. So you continue.
Yeah. So stepbystepbnb.com/revenue management. That gets you to our revenue management page. Both Jillian and I do these free consultations for people. So you just click on whether you have 1 to 3 listings or 4+ listings. That'll take you to our Calendly where you can choose a time to work with us and to have that free consultation. We try and be as transparent as possible. So we have our pricing right below that so that everybody understands what they're getting into. We are working on building this out a little more. I'm going to have some more videos on here and some better information. But basically, if you have anything that you want to discuss with us, you can always reach out to me via Facebook as well. I'm very active in that group, priceyourstr.com, or sorry, it's not .com, it's facebook.com /priceyourstr. I will send you the link, Matt, to put in the notes. But good. Feel free to DM me on Facebook as well. I always try and be as available as possible through the different channels. Do be aware I have 2 small kids at home, so I try and spend time with them in the evenings and on the weekends. But I try and be as available as possible the rest of the time.
Well, we're definitely going to do a part 2 because I feel like Austin wrote down a bunch of stuff too. I saw him writing an essay over there. It's probably the first essay he's written since 6th grade.
Me too, Austin. I don't like it.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Hey, he was dropping some good game, man. I'm taking notes for stuff to implement later. So
I saw you squinting at the price list. I saw you squinting. Hey, let me know. I'll give you my affiliate link before you call him.
There you go. Bam, bam, dropping it. Yeah. Anytime you guys want me back on, you just let me know. I apologize for all those listeners out there. I still do not understand time zones, so we were unfortunately off by an hour. So sorry we had to cut it short. But thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a fun, and come back anytime.
Yeah, now that's the kind of guy you want doing your revenue. He just admitted that he was late. He didn't have to say shit to you guys. So I'm just saying, I mean, that's pretty straight up dude right there. So anyway, I appreciate you coming, Jake. I know Austin appreciates you coming. I want to thank everybody for listening to the episode of Co-Host Bros. And I'll wait for Austin to give us a piece when he hesitates, and we'll end it.
Peace.
Awesome.
The Co-Host Bros Podcast. the Co-Host Bros Podcast.